flags in the air, hands up high, sweat dripping as we touch the sky. The music hits you can't deny. Tonight we live, tomorrow we shine. Echo, echo, echo. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this week's installment of Echo by BK Crypto, where we echo the sounds and voices of women doing amazing things in technology and blockchain and STEM and just all sorts of things. If you're a woman and you'd like to be featured on Echo, drop a comment down below and we'll see if we can get you on the show and tell the world what you're doing in this glorious field, whatever field you're working in. So, I am your host, Kimberly, and I have, you know what, Kimberly, otherwise known as That Black Crypto Chick on Twitter, otherwise known as X. I still have a difficult time saying that. Anyway, I always think about Malcolm X, so, anywho. And I have my lovely co-host, Miss
Rashona Bennett, aka RB Rising 1.
RB Rising 1. And we'll tell you a little bit about our co-host about our special guest in a moment. But before we get into that, I'd like to tell you to take a moment to follow this channel and give us a like so that we can bring you more of this amazing content. And so we want to be here for you today, tomorrow, and the next day. And so we need you to help us so that we can continue bringing you this type of content. So our guest today is Miss Kristen Turner. She is a field service engineer with 3 years of experience working at banks, including Citi, Wells Fargo, Chase, and Bank of America. Kristen specializes in installing, maintaining, and upgrading technology such as ATM machines, debit card printers, check and ID scanners, teller machines, and desktop PCs. She's also the owner of a successful ATM route. That's an ATM route. She's doing things, people. In her free time, Kristen enjoys learning about and investing in cryptocurrencies. So join us in welcoming Miss Kristen today, otherwise known as, I'm probably going to butcher your social media name. It's @_Kinera. Is it? Did I say it correctly?
It's good. It's K Anira. Anira is my
Anira. Okay. Don't be telling anybody all that. Now just let them know that you're on social media and that's how they can find you. Okay. So, one of the first things that we like to ask all of our guests, and, we'll bring it back, but what made you invest in cryptocurrencies?
Wow. So I first invested in cryptocurrencies when Bitcoin was valued at $300, and I had learned about Satoshi, and the thing that I liked the most about the Bitcoin was that it was untraceable, and to me it represented freedom, and that you had your own custody of that. Nobody else was holding it for you. And so, yes, I did have several Bitcoins and sell them.
You sold them?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of early investors did. Go ahead.
You saw my face. I was like, I got in crypto what did I get into crypto? 2017. I began, Bitcoin was at $900. So, or was it 909,000 in 2017? I believe it was like 9,000, right?
That later in the year, yeah.
2017. So it was 900 then. So when you got in, Kristen, right, there had to have been something for you to want to get into that. Did you see something? Was there something that touched you spiritually? Because again, you're a tech person. So in a sense, for me, it makes sense, but still it was something new. It really wasn't so-called currency. And most gamers at the time, from what I understood, really understood what Bitcoin was. They was playing it through their video games. So how did you jump into that? And then what made you sell it? Did you see it at a certain price and was like, I don't know if it's going to stay here? Like, I like to get into that too, though.
Yes. So I didn't purchase Bitcoin straight out. I was mining it with Hashflare.io and Genesis Mining. And eventually I started to see that the mining profits were just dwindling. They weren't doing as much because of the hash rates and the way that the miners started to perform. And so that's when I ended up selling it to get out of the mining. But at that point, I should have transferred into a wallet and held on to it, because I did have about 4 Bitcoins at the time. And so if I would have had those today, that would have been great.
Well, look. So I like the audience to really understand what we're talking about, because numbers is powerful, right? And if we got in when it was 300 and I got in with 900 and people didn't think, and then the pizza guy had it and sold it at what, 10,000 Bitcoins, and that was worth, I think in 2021, about 2 point something million or 1 point something $1 million. So what she's saying is 4 Bitcoins today at $65,000. It had to be, if you got it at 300, just to say to do the math, over $1 million. Even if you did it at 4 at 65,000, right? 6 and 4, 240,000, 5 and 4 is 20,000. Like, this is what people can't really see and understand. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I was able to get there at that price is because you can't overprint Bitcoin, people. Mm-hmm. This is not a printing press. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a digital asset that only has 21 million. And when she talked about mining, because every time it was mining, it was basically paying out those who were monitoring the amount of people who was buying the actual coin. So they were getting paid for it. Now, if we look at the traditional systems, and now the Fed is reducing the Fed rate, and we're talking about inflation and overprinting, that's why they can do it, because it has no value. And this is why BlackRock now, Infidelity, and everyone else is literally scooping up Bitcoin, because it's only 21 million. So if you scoop up only 21 million and you have even a fifth of that, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kristen, because people are not getting it.
Yeah, they're not getting it. That's why some people say that even if you have a 1/10 of a Bitcoin, even if you were to acquire, $500,000 worth of a Bitcoin right about now, actually it's even less than a 1/10. It's 1%, right? 1%. Yeah. You'll still be in the top owners of Bitcoin later on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So people need to really think about that. Pay attention, because as Roshona said, our governments, ours not the only one in the United States, our governments across the world are consistently acquiring, I can't say governments, but financial institutions are consistently acquiring cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, I don't know, Solana ETF looks like it'll probably be approved soon enough, but they're acquiring these things because they want to be the first ones in the room. But you have the opportunity to be one of those early adopters, and you would still be considered an early adopter if you were to jump in. And we're not telling you to do anything. We're just telling you pay attention to what's going on in financial markets around you. So, what were financial conversations, if they took place? What were they like for you and your family as a young girl growing up? What was your education around money like, if it took place or if it didn't? Let us know what that looked like. Walk us through that, please.
Excuse me. It looked imaginary, because it did not happen. So on my mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family, mostly everybody was military, police force, and there were several people who did open a business, but they never discussed to me anything about finances. And as you might know, public school doesn't teach you anything about that either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're trying to change that. That's true. Yeah, so many of us haven't had those sorts of financial conversations inside or outside of the household. And it's not just because, we're ladies of color or anything. Like, a lot of people just don't get that kind of conversation, fortunately, I'm trying to think of what year was that, and granted, the person who created it says the worst thing he ever did, but what year did they introduce like the 401ks? Does anybody remember that? Because The 401k, the guy who created them now says it's the worst thing because now companies are not like heavily paying into your retirement the way they used to. Like our parents' generation is really the last generation of a lot of that because now you only get, back then they had a pension. These days, the company will match up to whatever percentage, 6%, 8%, whatever your company is doing. And that's it.
It says,
Mhm.
your question, it said that based on the provided research, 401ks plan was introduced in 1978 when the relevant section of IRS code was added. However, it was not widely adopted or popularized until the early 1980s, and with the first 401k savings plan being established in 1981.
Wow. Okay.
I was born in 76, so
They
Yeah.
just right before we got here, or when we got here, they decided let's
Let's do away with these pensions, Yeah, exactly. Let's make people invest in their future. Go ahead.
I think that's a good segue to understanding, the fact that you didn't have the discussion in your family about finances. How did that actually influence your relationship with finances? Because what I did hear is this: when we start reflecting on our childhood and our experiences around money, our money relationships, or the things we experience, what came clear to me is entrepreneurship. You have ATM machines, you're an entrepreneur. So that is an influence, and it was a positive influence because as I see it from you, you took it in a way to change the narrative. So how was the non-conversation about finances, how did it shape your relationship with finances? Because you're doing it up in my eyes right now. So there was an influence.
So I feel like I kind of put my focus on that because that was missing from my life. It wasn't in anything I experienced as a child. I did have one cousin who opened up a sign shop where she created signage for people, and she became quite successful. And I always thought about that. And I noticed how she worked for herself and just seemed to have things better off for her than going into a career. And so at one point, I was very creative. As a child, I wanted to become an artist. And the only other thing I was good at was math. And so I said to myself, you're going into the math because you want to make money. And I felt like if I went into art, I wouldn't make money. It's a terrible way to think, because you can make money in any field that you go into. You just have to know what to do in order to make it. But that did shape my whole life, that experience of not having that around. It forced me to seek that out.
And
So,
so
were there any financial challenges that you and your family encountered growing up? Like, what was that like?
Many. My parents split up when I was young. My mother was single by herself in college. She did have to rely on public assistance. So we had a lot of family struggles.
Yeah, I think it's important for viewers to understand that regardless of what your childhood experience was, you can grow beyond that. And it only takes you paying attention to what's going on around you, paying attention to what's going on in the news, paying it, and not just, oh, this shooting, what happened over here and that right there, but like the financial news. We're talking about the financial markets and beyond the mainstream financial institutions, because they're only going to tell you, hey, pay attention to this after they've already gotten their position, which is basically what happened over the past 6 years, right? So, yeah. So, one thing here before we let you continue with your story, I always say to people there are crypto news aggregators. There's one called Crypto Panic. You can go on there and consume a lot of crypto blockchain news just to hear what's going on. Don't take it from us, take it from the news sources that are sharing news about the crypto world. So Crypto Panic. Okay, look that up. So
is another good one too as well.
Yeah, there's all sorts of YouTube channels.
Yeah, what I heard too, and I think we all could relate, depending on our understanding our money relationship. But I feel like what you experienced drove you to the other side, drove you to wanting more because you experienced, and that's not always true for everyone. Because let's be truthful here. I'm a financial counselor in the daytime, and sometimes we adapt I don't want to say bad behavior, but the experience that we see, we get comfortable with it. So complacent with, you know what, I'm going to stay on government assistance because it's easy and I don't have to do much. You know what, we pass along, you know, the housing as if it's going to be liquidity in there for years and has assets. And I'm not knocking anybody, but it's a frame of mind that we get stuck in because that is what we saw and it's how we grew up in. And we weren't educating on anything else outside of that unless something internally was like, I want more. And when you want more, something happens to you where things open up and it starts connecting you to the things that you want, even if it's uncomfortable. And I feel like that is also the strength that you have when you said my cousin who had a business and I saw, right? You leaned on that. You didn't lean on public assistance. And although I've been on public assistance because I needed it, but I didn't stay on it because I know I want more. But we still need a support and assistance at some time. So giving yourself credit, you kind of was the creator of where you are now because you decided I wanted more. And you felt, again, as an entrepreneur, I don't want to work this 9 to 5. It seems freeing. Can you talk about that? Because there's a separation between the ingrained 9 to 5ers. I'm not knocking anyone to the I want freedom, and I felt this earlier. And although entrepreneurship is not always easy, it's a state of mind. Can you embark upon that?
Well, since I still work my 9 to 5, absolutely, because it's two totally different experiences. When I go to work every day, I realize that I'm being paid probably a tenth of what my work is valued at. Because in order for the company to make a profit, they have to underpay you. That's how they make their profit. And then I'm set to do everything that I'm told to have to do. I have to be there at a certain time on a set schedule. And anything that I do, I have to run that by somebody else because this is their situation. They own this. Now, when I do my work for my ATM route, everything is based upon, well, am I free to schedule that? That is an amazing feeling to have complete control over something and then watch the money that it brings into you. It is freeing and it's wonderful. And I can't wait for the day that will be the only thing I'm doing, because I do realize that in most businesses, people think, oh, I'll just start this business and I'll be ready to just retire from everything else in 2 to 3 years. The average is 10 years. I haven't even hit the 10-year mark yet for that route. So that's 3 years from now. And I do expect to be retiring. We shall see. But I do encourage entrepreneurship because it builds your confidence, it builds your self-esteem, your resilience, your perseverance. And you'd be surprised at how when you focus on something and you continually focus on that, then all of a sudden these opportunities start to come to you and you'll say, wow, I didn't do anything to get this opportunity. It's because you're putting out this energy and that energy is being received. I believe it's from the universe sending you back what you're putting out there that you would like to come to you to seek.
That's exactly true. That's exactly, okay, here, before you get into this, because and maybe some people are like me, granted, I know your story, but when you say ATM route, you mean that you own ATMs, correct? Okay. And so how did you get into that? Because, I know people hear about vending machines and things like that. And so how did you get into that?
So this is a very funny part of my story. I got into that because I received a settlement and I was looking for businesses that you could run to earn passive income and do absolutely no work. I mean, this was my Google search. I was being like, I didn't want to work. I didn't want to do absolutely anything. I just wanted to sit down and collect money. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, that's not how it works.
It never is.
Yes. And so I started out with 2 machines and then I just became more and more. When I saw the money I was getting from the 2, those happened to be the 2 of my most successful machines. I assumed they would all be like that. And I just kept getting more and more and more. Well, some do very little, and some do more. And it turns out to become like a diversified portfolio. And I feel like it's like that in any business, even if you had a business made up of clients. Some are bringing in more, some are bringing in less. It's the big picture that I focus on. But I think it was a funny. I'll say this, right, because I believe in God. I don't mind if other people don't, but I've always felt like it was a sick joke where he was like tricking me into the hardest work of my life by allowing me to think that it would just be this easy thing.
He's a jokester, you're saying? He's a jokester.
I believe that. I believe that, but
I know
in
the
a good way,
feeling.
because it makes you stronger. I mean,
Yeah.
if you receive all this money and you've done absolutely nothing for that money, where would the
Yeah.
gratitude be?
This is true.
I love that. That is balance. That is polarity. And again, it's also you also working for yourself. So I do understand the joke because God got jokes, but he also gave us free will, right? And I think that when you have the opportunity to see the other side, I agree with you. It does make you stronger. It makes you wiser, but it also gives you the choice to say, do I really want to be here? Do I really want to do this? Am I fit for this entrepreneurship? Or do I want to stick with 9 to 5? And that's a question that you have to ask your personal self.
Mm-hmm.
You know, am I really fit for this? And you'll only know when you're sitting in those shoes as you were. And so by you having that experience, would you do anything differently this time?
Absolutely not. I'm 100% happy, even though I haven't been in the past. You know, times change. Right now, I'm 100% happy with how it's been slow to build the business up, how it's been extremely hard work. And I don't mind the fact that it consumes a huge portion of my time outside of work. I don't mind it. I believe that in the beginning, it's hard to just consistently work 24 hours a day. But once you get yourself used to doing that, you wouldn't have it any other way. I feel extremely bored and like I haven't accomplished anything if I'm not working now.
So question that, because not only are you a woman, um, you're a mom, you're an entrepreneur, you're working on the 5. So how do you find balance with self-care and what does that look like?
Self-care for me, because sometimes I won't have a day off for up to 16 days, 17 days in a row. Self-care for me, on that day off, I'm rushing to the nail salon and I'm rushing to the hairdresser. And that's my self-care. I don't really have time to go to the spa yet, but I anticipate that will happen in the near future. And generally, I will take a vacation once a year. This year, I'm not. But last year, I went to Panama and they were protesting the mines. So I spent my vacation trapped in the hotel pool.
Oh,
but
poor
it was
thing.
still a vacation. Is still a vacation. So
Yeah.
it was still.
You were away. So at least you had sunshine on the pool. Go ahead.
So regarding your ATM machines, are they ATM machines? Are they Bitcoin ATM machines or just regular ATM machines?
So I will say they're absolutely not Bitcoin ATM machines. I did want to get into that. It would probably be very lucrative, but the problem with Bitcoin ATMs in New York State is the legislation and the regulators, and the way that they have some of these statutes written up. I mean, if you get into the Bitcoin, they're going to be watching you with such a like eagle vision or binoculars, I guess, probably even a telescope, that you will have to go through all of these audits and be a part of all of this financial compliance. And it really puts you in this predicament where the government could take your entire business away from you if they don't like how you're running things. And so because of that, I just don't want any involvement with the government if possible. So the least amount, that's what I always look for. Otherwise, I could probably retire if I would add Bitcoin to that. But it's just not worth it's not worth being in the spotlight like that.
Yeah, not right now. I understand that. So, what's your experience doing the ATMs for the banks and the, I don't know, the maintenance of all these different technologies with the banks? What's your experience there? And like, what's like your conversation? I'm just wondering, does anybody else Does anybody at work know what you're doing outside of your day job?
No. Um, so, so in my last position, I worked at the help desk remotely, and I mentioned to my supervisor that I had a side business, and her response to me was, "Well, you're rich; you don't need a job." And since
Wow.
then, I realized that really, when you go to work, you should keep all of your personal information, your dreams, your aspirations, anything else that you had going on. I mean, don't even
Yeah.
tell them that you're into going to the museum, because the way that people interpret things, it has nothing to do with your perception of reality, and they will twist it on you. They're looking for a fault in you, because believe it or not, and that's another, that's something else that I didn't mention about being an entrepreneur. When you're an entrepreneur, you're competing with people who don't work for you.
Yep.
When you work for a company, you are in competition with everybody else on your team, whether you like it or not, even if you're not competitive, even if you don't even care about the job. So my recommendation is no, I would never say another word after that comment. It was a ridiculous comment.
The perception, and I know that every because this morning I was listening to an interview that Fantasia was on, and it's interesting that you said that. And the interviewer said, "Well, it doesn't matter because you're rich, you have money." And she literally looked at her and said, "Why would you think I have money?" She goes, "I cook myself. I go do my own food shopping." She's like, "I don't have a person driving to pick me up in the car." She goes, "See, the perception you guys have of entertainers." She says, "Let me tell you." She goes, "There are entertainers who are suffering and they're not making a lot of money, but they're projecting this idea that you also think that we have a lot of money." And she was like, "I'm right with you. I'm right where you are, sis." And this is what she literally said. And I said, wow,
It's
because that is
true.
you.
Yeah, it's true.
But Instagram, right? Book, and we are
Yeah,
seeing
yeah,
everyone is doing better than us because of that perception.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's all about perception. Having worked for entertainment in the entertainment industry for many years, I know firsthand that many artists, even when they, have sold gold records, even early platinum, they actually haven't made a lot of in-hand money at that point because the record companies get recouped first. So they so much of the project's earnings are recoupable. And so only after all those bills get paid does the entertainer actually get money. So normally by the time they get a gold record, they still aren't, they living on per diems. So it's true. Anywho, so so fast forward to modern day and life as you have it right now. It's like you're still grinding every day and everything. Is there any advice that you give to somebody who's looking to get into the ATM game right about now?
I would say be persistent, have faith. Do not assume that success will just be handed to you and it will happen rapidly. And you know, I would say this is for any endeavor. You have to have resilience and know that this may take 10 years, 20 years, 30. I mean, some people may take 40 years to build a business. So it's about enjoying what you're building and seeing that unfold more so than it is the instant gratification of success.
Right. Question: how does one determine, or do you have some say as to where you can place the ATM machine? I'm just wondering about that.
So I'd have to get permission
Oh,
from merchants to put an ATM there. And so there will be
right.
um, sales pitch, a negotiation about how much they'll receive from the earnings, because we are using their electricity, but we do provide 100% of everything else that's required, the internet and everything like that. But the store owner makes money. I'll make money. Obviously, the processing bank will take their cut every time. And then I try to keep the price lower than what the major banks will charge you if you're in an area where your bank is not present. and you use my ATM, it will be cheaper than your bank, and it will probably be more secure. Just because the banks are a target, and there are a lot of scammers that stand within the banks, and they're doing a lot of scams right now.
That's
I like,
true. That's
yep,
true.
yep. And so with segue into that, because you're on both spectrums, right? You're working for the bank, you're a field engineer, and you have your ATM machine. So with that question, how do you see blockchain technology impacting traditional banking, or even the ATM machines?
So I do think that the adoption of blockchain, it's going to take a while, because a lot of the customers, when we upgrade the bank software, they get mad that they had to press a different button. It is amazing how much people need to be educated in technology. A lot of people have no idea how to even operate a regular bank ATM and need to ask for help. I think that blockchain and crypto, I think it will become another form of currency that will be widely accepted everywhere. I believe that it'll be just as gold as cash in most circumstances. And I don't think that that will mean that credit has to disappear, or any other form of currency that we do presently use.
I mean, we already have cashless societies that already happened, that happened years ago, 10 years ago. What is it? Not Scotland, Scandinavia? No. Oh my God, I'm getting a blank.
It's not China.
No, well, China definitely has been cashless society. I mean, they use QR codes, and they're definitely using the social rating system as well. But there's also a cashless society. It's not Scandinavia. It's Kim, help me out, guys. It's in Europe. It's
What, Kenya? You mean Kenya? Oh, in
No,
Europe?
in Europe.
One of the northern European countries.
Starts with an S.
Sweden, I think.
Sweden, 100%.
Sweden.
Yep, Sweden. And there's a couple of places where they had a truck literally
Sweden.
Sweden, going to towns literally as an ATM dropping cash, but they're cashless. So I think what's happening is that America is so backwards, like they're so behind. I want to say that America, as great as they are to what they provide for their system, they are not forward thinkers. They jump on late, and that's for many reasons, but they're behind. And we know technology is going to evolve. And I think the biggest thing for people, or our people, brown and black, what do you want to call it, is to understand the system that you live in and find a way to make it work for you versus trying to fight it, the resistance. Because the only thing that is going to evolve is evolution. We are evolving as humans and as technologies. So how do we better connect and advance ourselves to have a better experience? That's connecting, that's community, and understand the evolution of the systems that we live in. It's powerful when we can understand that, as you've adopted to, in my eyes, understanding the system from when you grew up, from what you saw, you being a field engineer as a woman in the banking system, but you took it to make it work for you. I feel like BK Crypto and Echo, we're really trying to echo this level of transformation, to not be scared. And if you are, find a community to assist you, because if we don't prepare ourselves with the greater change, we are going to get left behind. It's inevitable.
I believe that's a part of the plan, and I do believe there is a plan. And I believe that plan is to leave people behind. So I think it's absolutely important that you need to educate yourself 100% on anything. And it's very important to watch what is going on around you, especially within the government and the regulations that come out.
100%.
I think it would be a terrible thing if the United States went cashless and the government came out with the CBDC, for instance. They would have complete control over your finances, and then that's a wrap.
And so how is that different from Bitcoin, right? Because people get confused because of how they're marketing into the mainstream. As you stated, what's the difference between the CBDC versus you having your Bitcoin, your peer-to-peer, right? Because there's a difference. It's a different level of control, being controlled and having control.
And the key word is centralized, right? So you would want to be invested in something where you hold that investment yourself. I mean, I wouldn't have Bitcoin and it wouldn't be in a BlackRock ETF. The whole reason to have Bitcoin is so that you have the custody of your money the same way if you had cash in your hand, you have that money and it's physical. You have that.
Powerful. Powerful. And so before we transition into echoing out of here, right? Where do you see the future of cryptocurrency, and where do you see the future of your entrepreneurship? And where do you want to echo the world?
So I do see, in my opinion, I believe that the regulations that they're trying to put forth against the crypto, I believe that they're going to be fought ruthlessly and that we will win. And I also believe that at the end of the day, my machines will have access to crypto as soon as these laws have been reversed by private people who will be suing them, because what they're doing is, I do believe that it's none of their business and it's a part of our rights. And also, what was the other question?
And what is the one thing that you want to echo to the world?
I would definitely like to say that people should really study cryptocurrency and get into it, because it's another form of currency that can provide freedom for people, and it's something where you can send your money to anybody else in the world from your wallet address, and they can receive it if they have a wallet address or Wi-Fi. You know, they don't have to go to Western Union, rely on these banks. It's safe. It's
The added fees
fast.
that the banks apply. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality.
And you're not being watched. So that's
the reality is that well, here. The reality is that, you know, all crypto transactions, unless they're, you know, on like Monero or something like that, they're fully visible. They're fully visible, like, you know. So that's why we say that more than it does with cryptocurrencies, because cryptocurrencies, it's on the blockchain. All those transactions can be easily seen, unless they're on a private network, you know, like Monero and a few of the other ones. I think that something that they're trying, the governments, you know, the powers that be, are trying to incorporate is a privacy layer on top of Bitcoin, because people in high places don't want all their transactions to be seen by the little people.
Bingo. Because now they own the majority of it. So that now the little birdie, from what I'm hearing, that BlackRock, let it rock the black, right, will now have more control of the treasury if they have the ownership of the Bitcoin. So nothing is new under the sun, so they say. So, you know, as Christian said, to watch is understand there's a game being played. You're either going to be playing checkers or chess. You have to choose. It's really not a time about being emotional. It's about being strategic. Because if you're truly thinking about building legacy, whether it's in agriculture, right, you have your farmland, whether it's you building tiny homes that are environmentally friendly, whether you're understanding the transfer of wealth through the new monetary system, whether you understand the power of collectiveness, there are changes happening, and they're happening already, and it's actually for the greater good, depending on what side you're sitting on. And what we sit on is the power of positivity and ascension. And so we're using the change that's happening within us to empower ourselves in the community. And so if we know that the wealthy, only 1% want to keep getting rich, then why are you not thinking about, how do I ride the train, right? Because you riding the train, whether it's a fifth, a third, a 16th, it's going to make a big difference to build legacy when you truly understand the bigger picture of what's happening. It's happened in every decade of change, from industrialization, from the car industrialization to the industrialization of technology, We're in the fourth industrialization, and some say the fifth. And now we're on quantum levels of healing, which is about tapping back into yourself. So we're saying this: it's now or never. Got an election about to happen in the 8th year. 2025 is a 9-year of transformation and change. And when they're ready to offset building their wealth, because money gets treated best where it flows.
Money flows where it's treated best.
Right. Money flows where it's treated best. Thank you. Then you know they're about to put their $1 trillion into digital assets, because follow the system, the history.
Follow the money. Oh, yeah. So, to rephrase that, you probably hear a lot of talk by BlackRock and other institutions that they'll be tokenizing. Everything is going to be tokenized, which basically means it's going to be put on top of the blockchain. Okay, that's what that means. These are just different words saying the same thing. Okay, so we're just here to tell you, pay attention, people. Pay attention, get your position in order, and maybe get some ATM machines.
Where can they find?
Yeah, maybe get some ATM machines.
I can be found at on my Instagram, which is at _KANNIRA.
Awesome. This is what I'm talking about.
And I'm also on X.
Okay.
That's right. For my crypto fund is X.
Okay. Well, this has been good. We look forward to seeing you next time on BK Crypto Echo.